Work session for today is December 4th, 2018, but we're going to cover some things for the December 4th, 2018 and the 11th of December and a whole host of other items. I'm going to work off this master agenda, and then we have some sub-agendas as we go through each one of them. And so my thing
Can we
is...
turn this up?
Yeah, it's just echoing in my ear. So the first item we'll go through is the Board of County Commissioners agenda for December 11th, 2018. And so we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. And then we'll ask the Vice Chair, Commissioner Hutchings, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then we'll move to approve the agenda for that day with any kind of modifications or revisions. And then, of course, the board meeting minutes for November 27th, 2018.
No, you too low. No, too low.
What?
Too high, too low. All righty. So on the 11th of December, we have two presentations. One is from the auditor's office, and it's the administration of the auditor's oath of office. What is that about?
Yeah, Commissioner, the auditor, Mary Cole, will not be able to attend the normal ceremony. Can you unmute your mic, Ramiro?
Good morning, Robert.
Can you hear me now?
Sorry.
Sorry, thank you. The Mary Cole, the auditor, will not be able to swear in on the normal ceremony, which is scheduled on December 30th. She will be on vacation, and according to the law, she can be sworn in on the last meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. So she has to come next December 11th. That's the last meeting of the board. And she will be asking, I believe, Josh Schaller to come along and provide the oath of the auditor's office.
Okay. I see what we're doing. Passing the baton for a moment. Okay, that's cool. We can do that. And so the other one is a proclamation recognizing the Day of Service of Volunteers. This is in reference to when we were out at the fairgrounds and we had the Air Force group come and do community service. And
Yes,
after we had breakfast and what have you.
And we were asked to, for security reasons, not to mention that there's going to be some individuals coming in from the Air Force located on JBLM. And so there will be some personnel coming in and accepting the proclamation on the day of service they participated back in November.
Okay. Maybe we can sing the Air Force song or something like that. I got a person who knows it very well. So.
She does.
Yeah, she's listening too now. So. Okay, so how about the next item is the opportunity for the public to address the board. Do you know anything? Any Christmas carols or anything like that?
You may probably have some testimony this afternoon related to the, on
the
that
11th.
afternoon,
Yeah.
on the 11th, related to the rates and charges. For your consideration will be the length in which you like to...
The rates and charges on the TCD.
Yeah, Thurston Conservation District.
Mm-hmm.
We have not received much of via email and comments, so you will have the opportunity to discuss later on this agenda the period in which the board would like to implement the rates and charges for the Thurston Conservation District.
Okay, we are prepared. And so the next item is the county manager's update. Do you have anything you want to disclose now, or you want to hold it till the 11th?
I'm going to hold it until the
That's
11th.
a Christmas present, huh?
I have a surprise.
Okay, good. It's like a Santa Claus or something like that. Little elf. Moving into item number 3, which is the consent items. We have items A through H. And so 3A is through the Public Health and Social Services. It's a resolution reclassifying a position, happens to be the financial assistant, to the accounting assistant 4.
Yeah, this particular, the person who was holding the financial analyst position recently resigned. And as a result, the department has gone through the process of reassessing whether that particular classification meets the business needs. As a result of that analysis, they're requesting the board to reclassify the position from a financial analyst to an accounting assistant 4. This particular action reduces the cost of the financial assistant 4 is $6,839 a month, And the county assistant 4 is $5,626 a month. That's a reduction of $1,212 a month, or just about 18% reduction. And that is the exercise that I believe all the directors should go through the process when somebody departs the county, and just assess the current structure as to how the business should be conducted, and this is the result of that.
All righty. Any questions, comments?
No.
concerns? Nope, we're going to do it. So we're going to go to 3B, and it comes from the Human Resources Department, and it's a memorandum of understanding between the Thurston County and the Thurston County Deputy Sheriff's Association.
Is the Thurston County Deputy Sheriff's Association Administrative Support Group.
Yep, I see that.
And this particular MOU has been negotiated to provide a cost of living increase in 2019 of 2.9% and a 0.4 medical leave contribution. And I think that between the two, it just balances out in terms of reaching an agreement.
Another 2.4?
Is a 2.9
9.
2.9, but what was the?
and a
0.04.
0.4, thank you.
%. Contribution to medical leave.
Got it.
Are you good with that?
Yep.
All righty, that gets us through 3B, and so we're going to move on to 3C, which is from the Community Planning and Economic Development Department. It's an amendment to the contract with Thurston Regional Planning Council for providing chief clerk services to the Washington State Boundary Review Board for Thurston County 2019.
So if I may, the last two items, 3A and 3B, are in alignment with the strategic initiative number 18 of
I
the
was wondering if you
strategic
were
plan.
going to call it that.
So the item 3C is with the strategic initiative number 7. And this is the extension of the contract that will have the Thurston Regional Planning Council to provide the services, the clerical services to the State Boundary Review Board for Thurston County. As you may recall, the board entered into an agreement with TRPC in January 2018, and that agreement ends December 31st, 2019. I believe they have performed the duties according to the expectations, and the proposal before you to extend that interlocal agreement to December 31st, 2019. The cost of the contract is $9,500, and we have allocated on the 2019 budget $10,000 to cover those expenses.
It's administrative only, right?
Yep.
Are you good with that?
Yeah.
It's a continuation, really, of what it is, an extension. Okay, so that covers 3C, and we're going to move to 3D. 3D is from Central Services. It's to approve a one-year contract extension with Harold LeMay Enterprises Incorporation for in-house recycling services.
This particular item is aligned to strategic initiative number 16, and this is an extension to the existing contract, and really what it's going to give Central Services staff is a year to explore how the different options, because the recycling material market is changing. As you may recall, is an impact not just to the county, to the state, but also to the nation, because as last few months, China used to buy a lot of recycling materials. That since has stopped, so there is a lot of questions as to how we're going to be disposing of the recycling materials. So at this point, it's unknown, and as to how that is going to be conducted. So this particular request is to extend the existing contract for another year to give us enough time to see how we can manage that in the future. This particular contract for 2019 is $36,050, which increased a 3% increase from the previous year.
Any comments or questions?
Nope.
We're good with that one. All righty, so that gets us out of 3D. We're going to move into 3E, and 3E is from the Commissioners section, which is the approve of the work session summaries. And we have several of them here. September 25th, October 2nd, and October 9th.
That is correct.
It's pretty easy. Any questions?
Yep.
No? Okay, so sure. So 3F is from Central Services, is to approve the Central Services Director to extend the custodial services contract for one additional year.
This particular item is also aligned with strategic initiative number 16, And to give you a bit of background, the board approved a 2-year contract back in December 2016, which ends the end of December of 2018 for custodial services. Within that contract, we had 3 1-year extensions on that contract, and this particular item is recommending for the board to go ahead and execute the first year of the first 3-year extensions. There's already part of the contract.
So we're approving a 3-year,
No, just 1-year extension.
just 1-year extension. So this will be the 4th 1-year extension.
No. The contract was
Allowed
approved for
up
2
to
years,
3 years.
Okay.
from December 2016 to
16.
December 2018. And within the contract, we have the options to extend 3 1-year extensions.
3 1-year, okay, that's where I get the 3 1-year.
So, and this is the first year of the 3 years.
Okay.
Of the
that's
3-year
the best-
extension.
Oh, I got that, but it's the best practice to do it a year at a time?
At this
Yes.
point, yes, because it will give us the opportunity, without
To
committing
evaluate,
to
yeah.
the next 3 years, because everything is performance-based. So obviously, I believe the suggestion by the department is to extend it because we start meeting the expectations. But in the event, in 2019, doesn't meet the expectations, then we pull back and the contract.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Yeah.
Does that come out of the general fund?
It does. Double it.
Welcome.
We are on 3G, 3 Golf. So 3G is from Central Services, and it's to approve the Central Services Director to extend the landscape services contract, which is expired on June 30th, 2019. So what are we trying to do here? Is it?
So right now, the existing landscape services contract ends on December 31st, 2018. And this particular action asks the board to extend the existing contract for 6 months. So in this particular case, we would like to go out with an RFP to secure other services. So the 6 months extension really give us the time to go through that selection process. And hopefully we can have a new contract on July 1st, 2019.
So when does it expire?
December 31st, 2018.
18.
Yes. And this is,
Oh, you want to extend to, I see
6
the word
months.
extend. I got to catch that word. Okay. I see.
Wait a minute. I get read it the same way, thank you.
Yeah.
Extend the landscape services contract to expire. Okay, so it was gonna expire at the end of this year, we're extending it for 6 months?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
got it now. I
Yeah,
got it.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
that's
All
it.
right, I'll do it.
Took me a while to get my brain around it.
but certainly we can clarify the language just to make it clear if I open
Well, I
for
think it's just me,
suggestions.
it's not,
Well,
well, it's just us, it's
just
that's
the-
not the language. It wasn't in Russian.
Da. Yes. All right, here we go. 3, did you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, did you read it differently or what?
Nope, I finally got it right after you guys.
Okay. Don't follow my lead. All righty, here we go with 3H. Is that 3H? Yeah. Or did I miss one?
Hope you got it.
Yep. So it's the auditors, and it's all the financial services that's posted on the website.
Yeah, it does your weekly approval of the voucher list.
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to move into department items, and the first department item is item number 4, and it comes from the Public Defense Department. It's a set of public hearing to amend Thurston County Ordinance number 14114, standards for the delivery of public defense services. Mr. Patrick O'Connor.
Yes, you had a briefing from Patrick O'Connor maybe 2 weeks ago, where he has been working for a few months now to update all the different ordinances related to public defense. And the current ordinances that we have are outdated. They do not meet the new standards the state has put in place for public indigent defense. And this particular request is just to bring those ordinances up to date to the current standards they are currently practicing. So, and this requires a public hearing, which is suggested to have it on January 22nd, 2018 at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. 3 p.m. in the afternoon. 3 in the afternoon.
All the way out to January 22nd?
Yep.
Are you good with the public hearing that far out? How about you? All right, we're good to go. I guess item number 4 done. So item number 5 is with emergency services, and it's to execute a contract for FY18 Emergency Management Performance Grant number E19-158.
Yeah, this is a yearly grant that we receive from the federal government. And for 29, goes from June 1st, 2018 through August 31st, 2019 for a total of $126,111. And this particular funding supports local emergency management programs, including public education, resource management, and logistic planning. This is already included as potential revenue in 2019 and the 2019 budget, and this request also gives authorization to the Director of Emergency Services to sign the contract and perhaps future amendments not to exceed 25%.
No question.
All righty, we go with 5A. So we'll go to 5B, which is Basic Life Support, or BLS, agency contract.
Yeah, this particular item is requesting the board to give authorization to the Director of Emergency Services to sign individual contracts with West Thurston Regional Fire Authority, Southeast Thurston Fire Authority, Lacey Fire District, East Olympia Fire District, South Bay Fire District, McLean Black Lake Fire District, Tenino Fire District, Griffin Fire District, Ball Hills Fire District, Bucota Fire District, Olympia Fire District, and Tumwater Fire District to provide services for basic life support. The total cap on this particular, the overall program is $1,043,759 and goes from January 1st, 2018 and December 31st, 2019. Each of those contracts will vary in the amount depending on the number of calls they receive, the different fire districts. And this particular item will give the flexibility for the Director to sign those individual contracts without exceeding the amount that I just listed.
All right, any comments, questions? Comments, questions? We're good with that one, so it's good. So that gets us out of 5B, moves us into 6 items on number 6 on the agenda. Comes from the Public Health and Social Services Department, and it's to approve the approval of the Department of Social and Health Services Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Contract Amendment Number 2.
Yeah, this amendment number 2 is with the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services, the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, also known as DVR. And extends the contract from the period of January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2020. And through this amendment, DVR pays the county $8,670 for each high school transitional student who obtains a successful job placement in the community during their final year in high school. And this particular program is geared towards students with developmental disabilities in Thurston and Mason counties.
Any comment? We're good, you're good.
How many would that be?
Well, I don't know if it's a goal or how many we have in the past. Maybe that would be.
Jennifer? Okay, yeah, thank you. Now, this is really cool.
So typically we have about 15.
Can you say your name, first and last name, please?
Jennifer Popchak Hakim, Thurston County Public Health Social Services Developmental Disabilities Program. And typically we have about 15 students that we work with each year with different providers, and then it varies on the individual based on acuity. Some students have more challenges, so typically we get about 5 or 6 that are placed by June, and then the rest are usually placed a little further on down the school year. So typically we'll get about 5 outcome payments from DVR.
And they're paid for this? They're paid? Or is it interning by me?
It's internships. They, the students participate in a number of internships, so we work in conjunction with the school districts. And they'll try out different jobs based on their interests, and then from that information they'll get placed into a job, and then once they're stable in their position, then we'll get an outcome payment from DVR.
Oh, good. And we do a letter of recommendation depending on work performance and such for them?
Correct.
Oh, this
yes.
is great. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have anything? No. Okay. Sure. I'm going to move on to item number 7, which is Public Works. And this is to authorize to issue requests for proposals for contracts associated with the operation of the county solid waste facilities.
Yeah, this item is aligned with the strategic initiative number 8 of the strategic plan. As you may recall, the board had a couple of briefings related to how we're going to be proceeding and procuring the services of the Waste and Recovery Center located in the Hawkesbury area, as well as the satellite locations Rainier and Rochester. And this is for the collection, processing, and disposal of all the solid waste generated here in the county. The current contract expires May 1st, 2020, and this particular request, it will give us the ability to go ahead and request proposals and give us enough time to negotiate this very complex contract. As a matter of information, we process just about 220,000 tons a year of solid waste refuse. And we also have over 230,000 customer transactions in any given year. The potential contract is just about $14 million a year, and the board decided to go ahead and have the request for proposal as the best way to procure the services in the future.
Any comments or questions?
When is that going to take place? When are they going to issue that request?
It's going to take a little time, maybe a month or so before it goes out.
And we'll know ahead of time about that time frame?
You would like to know?
Yes.
Okay. What specifically you would like to know in terms of the time?
Well, I'd just like to make sure I'm not talking to the wrong people at the wrong time. You've been cautioning us
Yeah.
on
Okay.
that issue.
Okay. I'll give you the time in which the proposal has been issued to the streets and when we're going to be finalizing receiving the, okay?
Just kind of keeping the loop on it.
Will do.
I'm going to talk to any of them, so I'm fine.
Just trying to do it right.
Yep.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Sure. Okay, so that completes 7A, and so 7B is also still from Public Works. It's approval of supplement number 1 to the interlocal agreement between Thurston County and the Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation for sewer, water, street services for the Eagle 4 development.
Yeah, this is item is also aligned with the strategic initiative number 8. And I think Commissioner Blake can recall when we entered into an agreement with the Chehalis Tribe to relate to the development of Eagle 1. And the Eagle 1 is where the current hotel is located.
Where the Marriott is.
The Marriott, as well as another destination restaurants they're planning to build. Through that agreement, the Chehalis Tribe needs to use public infrastructure provided by the county. There's wastewater, water, and transportation improvements. This particular partnership has been extremely successful, I believe, at least from my perspective. To the result is they are constructing a runabout old Highway 99 and 198, I believe, and also the improvements on Sargent Road. So I think this partnership is great. We provide the services, and they also build infrastructure. So this is the next step on their developments. This is related to what they call Eagle 4. It's just across the street from Eagle 1. And this is,
I thought that was Eagle 2, but okay. 1 to 4, but
well, they have,
okay.
I think
Eagles.
their
Other
timelines
Eagles,
is
yeah,
a little bit
yeah.
different on their development. So you're right, it's Eagle 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, yeah,
Particular
yeah.
case for Eagle 4.
But this is good.
So this is just to amend the same terms and conditions that we have on the existing contract to continue the partnership.
To cover Eagle 4,
Right.
as we did with Eagle 1. Very good.
Good.
And when did they start the roundabout?
They should have started already.
Oh,
Oh, really?
I was there the other day. But
Oh.
that's just me.
Because they were in the process of just giving the notice to proceed to the contractor. So I will follow up. So the
I'm not-
contractor has been selected.
I was down there the other day running around. I didn't see it, but that's
Oh,
okay. I mean,
maybe-
it'll happen. I know it will.
Yeah.
You know, just-
No, it will happen.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
It will
Okay,
happen.
so item 7, that concludes 7B. We move to 7C, and 7C is a contract award for the Delphi Road Upgrade Phase 3 at the 62nd Avenue Southwest to the 32nd Avenue Southwest, project number 61451.
Yeah, this item is aligned to strategic initiative number 7. On November 28th, we received 9 bids, and the low bid was $2,609,343, and that was from Sterling Breen Crushing Incorporated. And the department is requesting for you to consider awarding this contract to this particular outfit with an additional 20% to cover any unexpected issues during construction for a total contract of $3,131,212. This will be covered by $1.8 million coming from the County Road Administration Board through the Rural Arterial Program grant, and the remainder, $1.3 million, will come from the County Road Fund. This is already included on the 2018 budget, and it's already included in the TIP as well as the Capital Facilities Plan. Just to give you an indication, the engineer's estimate for this particular project was set $2,735,000, so the low bid just came under that engineer's estimate.
Any comments or questions? Nope.
Nope.
We're good on that. So it moves us into item number 8. And item number 8 is from the Community Planning and Economic Development Department. And it's the Comprehensive Plan Amendment for Spooner Land Use Plan Amendment and Rezoning. It's quite a description.
Yeah, this item is aligned with Strategic Initiatives 6 and 7. And as you may recall, this is a request by an applicant, the Spooners, as we call it, and requesting an amendment to the Thurston County Comprehensive Plan, Land Use Map N15. And this is related to 3.8 acres out of 5 acres total, located on A025 Yum Highway Southeast. As you may recall, there was a property of 5 acres. A little corner has a different land use designation versus the 3.8 acres. This was included a public hearing. On July 24, the board held received public testimony, and also in a follow-up briefing, the board gave direction to staff to follow up with the applicant's recommendation. And this will change the land use of the 3.8 acres from the McAllister Geological Survey sensitive area to a neighborhood convenience district. So all 5 acres will be the same land use designation. And also this, as you may remember, when you look at this particular parcel, there was a mature Oregon white oaks, and by allowing the larger land use, it will give the property owner to develop their property and keep this Oregon white oaks as a sensitive area to provide habitat, perhaps for the Massawa pocket gopher.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
Okay, I'm curious about you said you were going to change, would change the whole 5 acres, but then you said maybe it's only going to change 3.
No, the total size of the parcel is 5 acres.
Yes.
One small corner, it was already designated as the neighborhood convenience district.
Okay.
The 3.8 acres
Is now going to be
the
designated
same
as the
as the same.
Okay.
So that's the five
Okay,
acres.
good. Thank you.
I have a question.
And the staff is here. Allison is here to
Allison.
answer your question.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning. You want to introduce yourself?
Allison Osterberg, Senior Planner with Thurston County Community Planning and Economic Development.
Wow, it's a mouthful. My question is, does this impact Bam's Burgers or not?
Not directly, they're not on the property, although they are in the area.
Are they on that parcel though? Is that the,
Not
oh,
on
it's a
that
different
parcel, it's
parcel?
a different parcel.
Never mind then, thank you.
Yeah, it is the parcel that, historically, there was a meat shop on the property, but there isn't right
There
now.
was, yeah, yeah.
Not now.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I'm done.
I'm good.
We're good. Just worried about the burgers.
Glad I could answer that.
It is all about the burgers.
Crisis averted.
Okay, got that out of the way. So that was item number 8, and we're moving to item number 9, which is from the Commissioners and County Managers section. And the first item is 9A, which is the approval of ordinance establishing a collection period of the system of rates and charges for the Thurston Conservation District.
Yeah, the board authorized on November 27 the implementation of rates and charges for the Thurston Conservation District. At that time, the board wanted to split the decision in terms of implementing the rates and charges and give you additional time to think as to the period of time in which you like to approve those rates and charges. So that decision was split. You took an affirmative action back in November 27th. And by doing so, I believe you already make a decision to at least approve that for 1 year. So the decision for you at this point is whether it's 1 year or more. The initial request from the Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors submitted to the board was for a 5-year period. And this particular action includes the 5-year period. However, that can be changed depending on how the board would like to proceed on this.
Gary has a question.
Okay, so is that vote going to be taken
On the 11th.
on the 11th?
Officially,
So we'll take that on the 11th.
on the 11th. This is just reviewing the agenda for that day.
I'll wait till then.
Oh, yeah. We're not going to do it today. So it could actually be 10 years also, though, right?
You can go from 1 to 10 to 20.
Okay, good. All right. Any other comment?
I'm wondering about being locked in on that. I'm still wondering if
No,
you can go from 0 to whatever.
No, you couldn't go to zero,
Zero.
because you already took an affirmative action to approve the rates and charges. And that's how the county treasurer is
Split.
already moving forward to implement that in 2019.
Have you, I guess I would ask that council advise us on that.
I did check when you decided to split the two options, decision points. So, and you couldn't rescind that at this point, because the purpose of splitting that decision was to accommodate the timeline the county treasurer needed to do all that background information to start implemented in 2019.
As I recall, our legal advisor said you can't go to 0.
That's not the
Yeah.
point. The point is to think about the rates and charges.
Right now, we're not, you're not talking, are you talking about that, Gary? You're talking about going to 0?
Well, I'm
Both.
either or.
Time-wise, or time-wise?
Either or.
So the rates and charges are done and dusted. Now it's just a matter
Well-
of the time limit, or the,
From
They're
one,
length of the
almost, they're
contract.
almost done and dusted.
well, yeah, the option will be from 1 to,
whatever.
Oh, so 6 months is out of the question.
no,
Does the law require at least 10?
no.
No.
No, that's up to the period of the board and the length of period they would like
Okay.
to implement this particular rates and charges.
All righty, we'll get to it. So I'm going to move on to 9B, which is ERP quality assurance. So what is ERP?
So I will have Robin to walk you through the
Yeah,
details of this
that's what I'm
particular.
asking. Mhm.
So an ERP is an enterprise reporting program?
Let's write that out.
Okay. It is basically your finance and HR systems and all related systems. And as you know, the county has launched into planning for an ERP project. because we've been told by Tyler Industries that Eden, our personnel and payroll system, will no longer be supported in a few years. So we need to replace that. We've had Munis for almost 20 years, and it is an outdated financial system. So it makes sense for us to pursue an ERP, which is a combined single system, and to purchase them both at once. ERPs are huge, complicated systems, and I'm holding a slide from an ERP workshop. We've been to many of them now, and it says ERP is a career killer. And that's because if you do it wrong, you've just spent millions of dollars on a system that has to last for 15 to 20 years, and you're stuck with something that doesn't work. So everything that both I and the ERP team has been to has told us that it's worth investing the time up front in proper planning to make sure we do it right. Part of that is having someone who knows how to select an ERP system and implement the project. And Katie Giard had that kind of experience at the state. But with her departure, none of us on the team or anywhere in the county really has the experience to properly plan for and select and implement an ERP system. So part of the project is to hire an entity or a consultant who will help us do that with the appropriate amount of experience and background. We've checked with a few different organizations, and the GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, they are a nonprofit association where their entire business is to assist local government. So they know what we do, and they have 20 years of experience at assisting local government to select and implement ERP process or programs. So we are asking that you waive the competitive bidding requirements for professional services and authorize me to sign a contract with the GFOA to have these type of services so that we can get this right.
I have some questions.
Yeah, okay, me too. Go ahead.
Would that be legal to waive
waive.
that?
Yes, this is in accordance with our policies and
And
state law.
what would the amount of the contract be?
It would not exceed $200,000. It would be dependent on exactly the services we choose. The entire ERP project is going to be somewhere between $2 and $3 million. So it's about 10% of the cost, which is not unreasonable.
And that's, you can bypass the bid process to do this,
Yep,
and nobody gets in trouble.
nope.
Okay, I would ask though, I knew neither of those acronyms, so I'd ask that those are
Spelled
Spelled
out.
out.
spelled out
I was gonna say the same thing.
in whatever process we proceed with.
Sure.
And how long will we have or engaged with the professional services?
So we would have them from like immediately. They would start in helping us to map our business requirements, and they would be with us at least through selection of the vendor. They will do things like they'll help us with mapping business process, determining, you know, what are the things we really need rather than what we really want, ensure that we take a future view and install best practices rather than we've always done it this way. They'll help us write the ERP in the selection of the software vendor. They'll help us write testing scripts to see if the software really does what the vendor says it will do. So we'll have them on board for anywhere from 4 to 9 months.
Okay, not a year or two? Do
No.
we keep them on contract or on retainer, like a help desk?
We could, yes, we could do that after the fact as we implement. That would be a service that we could choose.
So if we keep them for 4 or 5 months, or maybe 6 months, that, this is just not to exceed 200,000, that'll cover it.
That's correct.
Okay.
You want to ask it or you want me to ask it?
Well, you go ahead.
Where's the money coming from?
Yep, that's exactly what I was gonna ask.
Large IT system reserve, which is billed out to every office and department and fund.
So it's partial.
It is partially, yes, it is partially general fund, but in the long term, the entire project cost. We have to have these systems. You can't run a county without being able to make payroll or track your finances. I mean,
Paying
that's
for a
what these are.
licensing issue here as well? Is there some licensing issues that you're purchasing, or is it all
With
hardware?
Oh, no, it's all software.
Or
It's all
soft- yeah,
software.
Okay.
And it'll probably be a cloud-based solution.
You good? Okay.
Thank you.
You got to spell out those acronyms. Then.
Yep, will do.
Yep. All righty. So that gets us through.
Excuse me, Commissioners. An item that is not here that will be on your December 11th agenda will be the approval of the budget amendment, the last budget amendment for this year.
Oh.
You will be holding a public hearing this afternoon on that matter. And
Number
this
7.
will be for your consideration next Tuesday as well.
Okie doke. We can do that. We've done a couple of those before. All righty, so that gets us through the December 11th, 2018 BoCC agenda. Any last minute comments, questions from anybody in the room? Oh, do?
Oh, yes, we have, on the
Good.
11th, we have a public hearing.
We do.
Thank you.
Oh, my God. There
And
it
this
is.
is related to the interim marijuana regulation that is scheduled for 3 in the afternoon. And you will have, for
You
your
see it?
consideration, 2 options. Is move to close the public hearing, and also, depending on the public testimony that you may receive, you may take an action to go ahead and approve an ordinance establishing the interim regulation as permanent regulation for marijuana.
I have a question about
Oh, okay, go ahead.
that. If that was to happen,
The final?
yes, if we changed it to a permanent resolution, then what is the process to make adjustments in that particular ordinance as time goes on?
Jeremy Davis knows his answer.
He knows the answer on that. Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Certainly.
Bless you.
Yes.
That's the answer, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremy Davis, Community Planning. So if the board were to enact the current interim regulations as permanent, to make changes in the future, we would have an item on the county's development code docket, and then we would go back through the process of going to the Planning Commission and back to the board with any final changes. We would come to the board first, of course, to look at a scope of those possible changes to it, such as the hemp issue that you had brought up last week. And looking into that, and actually we've been talking about that some internally and already starting to look at that a little bit. So.
Okay.
And, I'm sorry.
How about, and what would that process entail today if we did it before we finalized it? Would we have to go through all of those steps as well? I mean, if we had an issue that we thought was beneficial to the ordinance, could we attach that in now? Or would we have to wait regardless?
We would have to wait regardless. It would be technically, depending on the nature of what you're talking about. The hemp issue, if I remember correctly, that is something we couldn't have done in time for this public hearing. If there are minor tweaks to the regulations that we put forward for the public hearing and we're responding to public comment, we can certainly make those tweaks at the board's direction. But any larger issues, we'd have to go through the process further and scope it out.
I might just need a clarification of what a tweak would be versus a larger issue. Maybe specifically a setback issue, a square footage issue. I really don't know.
Yes, sir.
Do we regulate the number of plants, say, a grower might have?
No, sir, the plants are regulated by the
By
Liquor
the
Cannabis
state.
Board, depending on their tier of their license, and I don't remember specific plant levels, and I think some are square footage as well. So a tweak would be like if you're reducing the setback from, say, a daycare facility, currently the regulations say 1,000 feet. The state law does allow us to reduce that. We've never presented that in the past. The board has always been concerned about that distance because the closer you are to children, the closer the effects are to children.
Well, just using that as an example, if we wanted to change that to 800 feet instead of 1,000 feet, is that a tweak, or is that a major issue that would require going back to the whole process?
I think some of that would depend on the public comments we receive from the board. We do have it in the notice that the board may make changes to the draft regulations. I would have to check with our legal counsel on that, but I believe something of that distance or change would be within scope of doing a small minor change to it.
Okay. Without referring back to all the public comment that we've got during each one of these extensions, if you will, I do think there was some issues where the 1,000 foot was an issue. Now, I don't know that 800 would fix it, or 500 or 900. So as long as that's been commented on, is that what you're saying, that then we could say, we could just pick a number, we could say, okay, well, 1,000 might be too much, maybe we want it to be 1,200. But if that adversely affected a business, then we would be exposed to liability because...
Well, if there's an already existing business, it won't affect their current operations. They're legally non-conforming use, or legal non-conforming use, so they can continue in their current operations.
But it might prohibit it in expansion, is what I'm thinking.
If we make them non-conforming, it might affect their expansion. Typically, with these uses, we're allowing them in that location. And so if they expand away from the sensitive area, they would probably be fine. If they want to expand closer to it, that may be where you have an issue, but there should be enough buffer in there to do a minor expansion on a current commercial site. We'd have to look at that, though.
Is that your new ringtone?
No, it's my tie.
It's very microphone too. And you can't silence that.
Is that a timed?
Since I've been talking long enough.
So that means it's time for Christmas, or?
Yeah, it's Christmas time is coming.
That is timely.
Okay, that gives me a rough idea of how we can proceed then.
Or not.
Or not, maybe, yeah.
You have a comment?
Yes. Isn't the setback, the 1,000 foot, for example, isn't that set by LCB or by state law?
Initially, it was set in state law, but they changed state law some years ago to allow jurisdictions to reduce it. The county in the past has looked at that during previous briefings and have never directed staff to reduce that in any of the interim regulations. Because, when you reduce that distance is from parks, schools, daycare facilities, and where kids play.
Right.
And so I think that's been one of the considerations to why we've kept that 1,000 foot buffer. And it has been, it has affected some locations. If you remember, we showed you the map with a while ago with where those buffers would be applied with currently known locations. And so it does add a further restriction to it. That's a intramural restriction. It's based on that daycare business being there. And that's actually been one of the biggest hindrances, because sometimes you'll see the daycares in the same commercial areas as you might see where marijuana use wants to go.
When did that law change, or when did the LCB leave it to local jurisdictions? Do you remember? 1, 2, 3
Over
years?
a couple of years ago. I don't remember the specific year, but it was 2 or 3 years ago. That's nodding his head.
March
there.
2016.
2016.
2016, because it was about that
Jeez.
time frame, someone, a policymaker in Olympia, was trying to get it reduced to like 100 feet or so. And so I knew we could go more restrictive, but not less restrictive. So it didn't go anywhere. So I'm glad to know at least it's left to the local jurisdictions.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but if we do away with the interim and adopt a permanent or a final, if we do make any amendments, it has to go through the entire process to include public hearing again?
Yes, sir. We would have to go to the Planning Commission and back to the board to make that
Okay.
change. If it's an emergency or emergent issue, you can adopt interim regulations again, but you're usually looking for an emergent situation.
Yeah.
You know, like the one that necessitated this and the state legalizing it, so.
Yeah.
Okay, you got another one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have we had any discussions in front of this board in reference to the ability to adjust that 1,000-foot distance that you're aware of?
I know we probably brought it up in the past during some briefings in the context of the overall regulations after the state had changed the law as an issue. I could pinpoint some certain dates and get those to Vicki on when we may have talked about that in board briefings.
Could you also come up with the number of businesses that have claimed an adverse effect on their operation?
Because of that ruling?
Yes, because of that ruling. And what I'm specifically looking for is if a business is not allowed to be competitive with another business solely because of that setback issue. And I almost remember hearing some discussion on one or two of them, and I'm not saying that's true or not. It's just over the 2 years that I've been here, I believe I've heard something about that being restricting a business, I'll just put it that way, from expanding from where they actually, the physical location was, because of that 1,000-foot, and it was kind of a questionable daycare. So.
Right, so there we, go ahead, I'll let you finish.
Okay, so I'm just wondering what kind of record you have that you might be able to glean from your information that would help maybe me make a decision if I wanted to argue as we make this permanent or not, if we could adjust it. And I don't want this taken as if I'm out there promoting marijuana, because I've never been in favor
I
of
think it's
this.
the other way around, but okay.
Right, but
You're promoting,
I want to promote fair business if we're required to regulate this stuff. I don't want to squeeze somebody out. And so could you review that? And I don't know
Certainly.
when might be
well,
we're
there's
taking
not that
on
many,
doing this.
first off.
No, I know it. There's only a couple.
And
But I
then,
think I have heard of.
and I'm gonna stick to mine, was to promote the health of the kids, that helps with that 1,000-foot.
Yeah,
Because they're still 30% of the population, 100% of our
I
future.
realize
so,
that.
okay. So,
but I do think that was an issue that was brought up.
there's
So-
onesie twosies of it.
You done?
I am, sir.
And just send those to Vicki.
No, here, let's bring all that information next Tuesday morning when we
But-
revisit
but-
this agenda
You
item.
can send it ahead to Vicki,
Yeah, but I would
but
like
bring
to
it to
have
the
that
table
hand if
on
you
the,
can
We
on
need
the,
to bring that to the board.
bring it
Yes.
out, lay it all out on the table.
We need to have a discussion with it.
Okay.
And I want to look at the reverse effect, for an example, and that means if, for example, if Commissioner Edwards wanted to open up a grow or production, whatever it's called, he wants to be a producer.
Of
but it's
hemp.
within-
Yeah.
It's within that 1,000-foot buffer of, you can't do it. He's told no. But if he has an established business and a daycare within that 1,000-foot, says, I want to open up a daycare, are they then told no? They can't because they're within that 1,000 foot?
Or the other way around.
No, it's the other way around. New marijuana businesses that may want to be located in that area could not.
Yeah.
The existing one remains a legal, non-conforming use. I'm not sure on their license side, that's an LCB question. The daycare can go in there because they know that the use is there, it's there.
So they can go in within that buffer and operate, and it doesn't cause the existing business any grief.
Now, it's the same thing, I believe,
But that has not ever happened.
with liquor licenses that have a
Yeah.
distance separation between a school and a liquor license, certain classes of liquor licenses.
It's like the no contact orders, I have one against you. So you can't contact me, but I'll try to contact you anyway.
Yeah.
And get you thrown out of a place. So I want to be sure that a daycare, one of those protected
You'll protect both sides of the action.
businesses or organizations can't go in and cause grief for the existing business. Or at least they would be notified, hey, within 600 feet or 500 feet, there's this marijuana producer,
Okay?
that they would know that. I just want to be sure there's protection for those to those folks as well.
So what is the ask or the task to him? I don't understand. To
Find out
Jeremy.
what the legal ramifications are, if they're allowed to do that, we don't restrict them, I would think.
That's what I'm hearing is look into the legal ramifications of a daycare facility locating close to an existing marijuana business and what does that mean for that
Within the
existing
county
marijuana business?
ordinance, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm going to go back this direction.
Is there any requirement, because I guess we had a public meeting sometime back, a public hearing on this topic. Is there any requirement that now we're contemplating doing something permanent where we had extended, I guess, a temporary? Is that what we did?
Yes, sir.
Extended temporary. So now we're contemplating something permanent. Is there any requirement that the neighbors and businesses be notified that we're contemplating making that permanent at this juncture?
Is there any legal requirement
Yeah,
in
that
state
we
law?
make notification of
Notify all
those folks.
existing businesses? No. The legal requirement in state law for our public hearing notice and in our own county code is that we post a legal notice in the newspaper of record, in this case is the Olympian, and we also posted it in the Nisqually Valley News. And we also have a legal requirement in our own code of issuing a press release, which we did so last week. And then our own internal notification system we have is I have a marijuana list, is what I call it. It's a notification list of 50 or so folks that have been interested in the past in getting notifications on our hearings. So they've been notified as of yesterday, as well as the 1,200 folks on our general land use amendment notification list for email. So we have done some direct
but
notification.
We've got some notice out there to the
Yes, we
public
do.
that we're
And
thinking of
actually,
doing
there was
something
an
different.
article in the Olympian today.
But also you may recall, when you approved to set the public hearing, you also waived the county requirement of the minimum 20-day public notice. And so we just refer back to the minimum stated by law, which is 10 days. So that was part of the action that you took on November 27th.
Yes, sir.
And that information must have went out to all these people you're referring to, right?
The
Interested parties.
notification did go out to all of them, and I think there may be something in the legal notice as well. I can't remember though offhand.
Okay, thank you.
And this will come back to us on the 11th?
Yep.
Still?
There's a public hearing on the 11th. So in the morning, when we review the agenda for the afternoon, then Jeremy will come back with all the answers, all the questions that you requested.
But then it'll be on the agenda that day to decide?
In the
No?
afternoon, you have two possible actions you may take. Is one, to close the public hearing, and the next will be, depending on the public testimony you receive, the board may consider taking an action to have the interim become a permanent regulation. That's the motion, second motion for your consideration in the afternoon of the 11th.
I need that clarified again, because what I'm hearing is, if we take an action for a public hearing, then we're going into 2019 before we decide on?
No.
No, okay.
So
On the 11th.
what I have before you is the two actions, potential actions. One is to close the public hearing, and the other one,
Just to make a decision on the
make a
interim or
decision on
non-interim.
that. Yeah,
Okay.
Or final.
Just to clarify, Mike Kane will be here for the hearing.
okay.
You won't?
Yeah, I was already scheduled off that day. So.
Sure, not a problem. He's got one more thing.
One more thing. On the 11th, then, I guess I want to clarify
Yeah.
from the county manager. So we may take an action at that point in time, after the hearing, after we close the hearing. Or,
Or not.
well, yeah, or what about, I mean, we don't always take actions the day we have a public hearing. So what I'm wondering about, are we having any other public meetings of the Board of County Commissioners, I guess is what it takes to take that meeting, or to take that action, right? So is the 11th the last day, or like we're coming together on the 14th
So
or
the
something for
11th
a
is the
budget
last,
issue?
the 11th is the last Board of County Commissioners, the formal Board of County Commissioners meeting. But certainly, we can schedule a special meeting of the board later in the year if that is the wish of the board.
Well, does it, could the action the board wanted to take on that issue take place, just for an example, on the 14th? I think we're having a budget meeting.
Absolutely.
So
It's a
just
special
any-
meeting, though, at that point in
It
time.
has to be a special meeting
has to be-
announced ahead of time, or
we
can it just be
need-
part of our agenda?
We just need to schedule it, and we need to develop an agenda. So
Okay.
if the desire is for the board on the 11th to delay that, give me an indication as to when you would like me to schedule a new meeting, and we will draft that agenda currently.
I mean, I'm just wondering what kind of public comment we're getting, and at that point, on the 11th, what we're gonna get for public comment. If we get a bunch of folks, maybe we wanna hesitate and do something a couple days later. I don't know.
That's absolutely within your purview.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. That's all.
Within the board purview.
It's a bird.
Within
board
your,
purview.
your purview.
Right.
And this board can decide.
That's right.
The democratic process will prevail. Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay,
Thank
let's
you.
go,
Thank you. Have an awesome day.
let's get to the Board of Health and then we'll take a break. Alrighty, so on December 11th, we're gonna have the Board of Health at 3:30 PM. And Shelley and Lydia are coming to the table. So at 3:30, we'll call the meeting to order and make a motion to approve that agenda that's presented with any kind of modifications or revisions. Item number 2 for this, the Board of Health is the opportunity for the public to address the board. And I'll just take a glance. Does anybody know of anything? Do you know of anything, Shelley, Lydia? It's on.
No, I don't.
Okay. Robin, anybody? Okay. So item number 3, which is department items. And the first item we have here is the syringe services program update. And is it going to be Jeannie and John and Patrick?
Yes. Jeannie will introduce the item, and then Patrick and John will be teaming on that presentation. It will be similar to the briefing that you had a few weeks ago. It'll be abbreviated version geared to sharing information with the public.
Okay. Any comments on that? Do
No.
you remember the briefing about a month ago? Okay.
And 15 minutes is abbreviated?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess I wasn't here for the other one, so that's why I'm looking at.
And on December 20th, I'm going on a field trip with the crew.
Okay.
I'm so looking forward to it. Yeah.
And others are welcome to join
Yes.
Take
if you would
pictures.
like to.
What day did
Tour
you say
the-
that was on the
De-
20th?
December 20th.
Yeah, it's supposed to snow that day.
It is, yeah.
How do you know?
Let it snow.
So
Bud
are we
knows.
closing the courthouse?
Take my
there?
time.
This Bud knows. Trust me. Trust your Bud.
Are you gonna go?
I don't know at this point.
Okay, so they have a slideshow. They're good. Okay, I think we're good there. Anything else on that? No. Okay, item number 4 is Thurston Thrives update. It's monitoring community health, and then Crosby and Carter and Marianne Aguero are going to present it.
Yes, Marianne O'Gara will be sharing the data snapshot for housing economy and children and youth. This
Oh, that's good.
presentation was shared at the Thurston Thrives Coordinating Council meeting last month, because that is the area of emphasis that the council has decided to focus on. So Marianne will be sharing some local data with you.
So this is a roll-up or combo of the 3 housing, I'll say children and economy kind of
Yes.
thing? Yeah, all kind of wrapped into one.
Yes.
Good. So we've been working on that for 4 years, trying to get to that. But, okay. Any comments or questions on that? It'd be interesting, just informational only at that point in time. However, item number 5 is, calls for a motion, but it is the approval of a resolution appointing alternate local health officers for 2019.
Yes, so each year, the Board of Health approves alternate health officers in the event that our health officer, Dr. Rachel Wood, is unable to serve, whether that's by absence or incapacitation. This is a request to have you approve any qualified health officer in the state of Washington to be appointed to serve in Dr. Wood's absence.
I have a question.
Yeah, I do too. So you go first.
It says, in reading that move, to adopt a resolution someone could be appointed if need be. By who?
The order is, number one, Dr. Wood would designate another health officer to serve in her place.
Okay.
This is actually routinely done whenever Dr. Wood's on vacation and out of service and unavailable to the county.
Okay.
There are several health officers in the region that cover for each other. And so number one is Dr. Wood. Number two would be myself as administrator of the Board of Health and director of the department. And number three is the chair of the Board of Health. If I was unable to make that appointment, then the board would.
Okay,
And
so
it
we've
requires
got that
and it
authority
requires
all
me to
laid out
notify.
ahead of time.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we've done this in the past, we've done this.
Yes, you have. In the past, you have identified individual health officers. This year's proposal is any health officer in the state that could serve. So it gives us a little bit more options.
We don't have
and
that
it's-
option now?
well,
Anybody in the state?
ha-
I'm sorry, what we're trying to solve.
Sure. What you approved last year was a list of specific health officers. So that includes like Dr. Diana Yu from Mason County, and Dr. Alan Melnick from Clark County, and several others. Instead of assigning specific health officers, we're broadening this. There's a limited number of health officers in the whole state. In certain types of emergency, we may need to look even beyond the region that we have, and those health officers that we typically call upon may not be available or may be consumed with serving their own communities. So this gives us more
retired.
options.
So this just we're able to cast a broader net.
Yes, it's just to ensure that that Thurston County always has a health officer ready and available to serve.
Yes.
Please come to the microphone.
Uh-huh.
Then I have one comment.
Good morning.
Morning.
I don't know if I have to.
Just
lean
start
in.
speaking, that's okay.
I'm Rachel Wood, the health officer for Lewis and Thurston counties. Shelley has represented it exactly as is the case. I have been fortunate to share health officer coverage with Dr. Melnick from Clark, Dr. Jennifer Vines from Cowlitz, and Dr. Diana Yu from Mason County for a long time. This does broaden the ability for you to have a health officer cover, and it also puts a little bit of responsibility on me in case I'm asked to cover for somebody from Spokane County or from Snohomish County. The idea with this is that in an emergency, it could be that the health officers locally are going to be busy in their own counties. Or if there was some emergency like an earthquake or a pandemic flu. And it's nice to have people familiar with the laws of the state and the health officers' duties and authorities functioning in that capacity.
Okay, sure. Got two items. Romero and then back to me.
Okay.
So, as I understand, shifting from what is the prescribed appointments from actually listing all the health officers versus giving more flexibility. So in terms of the timing, let's say an emergency comes, then you're not here.
God forbid,
Right.
but yes.
And then Shelley can probably pick up the phone and call Spokane County and say, you're it. Is that the intent?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
So that kind of goes to my question, or my thought. I don't know if it's broadening is better. I don't have a problem with that to a degree of how would you assess, is it just the next person available in his scenario? Because I would want a doctor that's more closely familiar with Thurston County policies and procedures. I know we're all smart and all that, but how would you get to that level first before you just say any doctor, I guess?
That's a very reasonable question. And I'm going to look into this a bit more because I'm doing this on advice of Dr. Melnick, which he adopted it in Clark County, and Dr. Susan Turner, who you haven't heard of, who's a very competent.
I mean, we could figure it out. I mean,
Yeah.
the only one that's available might be the only one that's available, but I mean, if we share, and there's a commonality of sharing, say, with you and, say, Pierce, for example,
Sure.
and then those two would probably know a little bit more than Spokane. It is so
Correct.
technical, I don't even want to really get down to the grassroots of it, but just a thought, food for thought. And then I have another item. It says here, and I'm being picky for a second. Move to adopt Resolution H3 2018 appointing an alternate. My linguistic portion of me tells me "and" means one, and you should probably put "and any," A-N-Y.
I agree.
Okay, you don't have to. I'm just looking at the
So just a
Russian
follow.
portion of it. Go ahead.
So in a way, you need to, at least I assume you have a roster.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So in a way, you have to go through somewhat of a homework to determine who meets the qualifications. So you have a roster across the state as to who could serve in any given time, right? Yes. Okay.
My comment is just to keep the liability wholesome as much as possible for Thurston County and the person who might be advising in a doctor role.
I care about that too.
Yeah. That's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at the person's qualifications or the actual persons on the list. That's ye who is closer to Thurston County and opposite of that. You had a question?
As this is contemplated being adopted, is there any reason the county manager can't be in that loop? For an example, if you aren't available, maybe the county manager, then the health chair, or,
We can certainly add members
I mean, I'm
to
just
that,
wondering
to
if
that
there's a reason.
succession.
If we're
Yes.
looking for
We can deepen the
fail-safes.
succession.
We've never gotten at the level, but I mean, you
Yeah,
can.
well, I mean, and I trust the doctor, health,
Okay.
Shelley, to be able to figure this out, so.
And
I just wonder about adding that, that's all.
we can certainly do that. So we can add Ramiro to the list and
The county
provide you.
manager. The county manager.
Yes, the county, the county manager to the list. And also, yes, I just wanted to say that our practice would generally be to look at whatever the closest available county is to serve in that role. It would be, when those were not available, we would broaden our
And
search.
I would suppose that might entail a certain officer or a certain doctor being more familiar with a certain type of a problem than maybe others.
Yeah,
You
that
want to
too.
pick that person because they've got expertise or something.
Just the liability piece is
I'll
really.
I'll leave that up to you guys to figure that out.
All right,
I'm all for it. So.
We good? We're gonna move on to the item. So item number 6, still in the department item, is to approve the amendment number 1 to the Lewis County contract for the purchase of Nurse Family Partnership Health Services for 2019. Any comment on that?
Yes, so RCW 7805150 pertains to contracting for health services with other counties. Lewis County does not have sufficient staffing to operate their nurse family partnership program. Last year, they contracted with Thurston County to provide 2 nurses to serve Lewis County with nurse family partnership services. So this is a contract proposal for $309,822.25 that Lewis County will pay to Thurston to cover the full cost of us providing nurse family partnership services in Lewis.
I'm good.
Yep,
Okay, very good.
and that's me,
Yep.
all the way.
Alrighty, so that takes us to item number 7, which is the Board of Health members reporting out, and then number 8, the Director's report, and then number 9 should be the Health Officer's report. So, and then we should adjourn by 5 p.m. Any comments or questions about the
So
Board
just
of Health?
a logistical comment. 3 o'clock, on December 11th, we have a public hearing on the marijuana regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the public testimony, that may probably affect the start of the Board of Health meeting, just to give you a
Okay,
heads up.
alrighty. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
No, sir, thank you.
Anything?
Thank you.
Nope. Thank you very much, Shelley.
Thank you.
Alrighty, at this point, it's 10:45, even though it says 10:43 up there. Take a 10-minute break, come back at 10:55.
Commissioners, I just wanted you to meet Dr. Singara.
Dr. Singara. Sure. So welcome back to the Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session. Today is December 4th, but we're covering on December 11th, both the BoCC and the BOH, the Board of Health. And so now we're going to move along the agenda, and since there's no proclamations or awards or briefings, the public hearing pending decisions, we'll go straight to the legislative updates. We have two items there. One is the military benefit zone, City of Lakewood, and the other one is a legislative breakfast. So, you know, I want to give a little bit of background on the military benefit zone.
Yeah, let me take you back to the 2018 legislative session, and they were introduced two bills, House Bill 2341, which is related to implementing what they call the implementation of JLUs. The JLUs was a joint-based land use analysis, and that particular bill wanted to implement within a buffer of the JBLM, which created a lot of restrictions as to what the county can do in terms of the development. And it was so imposing, they dictated the county needed to change the comprehensive plan to eliminate any potential development within that buffer. But also another bill was introduced that was 2635 by the City of Lakewood, which included the military benefit zone. And that is more economic development. By designating this economic development zone within the buffer allows all the jurisdictions to access federal funding to specifically address economic developments within the military zone. As you may recall, there was a lot of contradictory items in these two pieces of legislation that at that point the board decided to oppose House Bill 2341. That was the JLU's implementation. And also the board decided to remain neutral on the House Bill 2635, which is sponsored by the City of Lakewood. The City of Lakewood would like to introduce this military benefit zone on the 2019 legislation. And I believe the House Bill 2341, the more restrictive, will not be introduced this upcoming session. So my recommendation to the board will be for you to consider supporting House Bill 2635, which is related specifically to the military benefit zone. And then within your packet is a flyer that describing in details what this benefit zone is planning to accomplish.
What was Pierce County's take on it, or is, if you know, and or DuPont? I see Lakewood may be on board, or DuPont or some of the other jurisdictions that are right there buffered right up against JBLM.
All of them are in support, and we receive a formal request for Thurston County to consider full support of this bill.
Of 2635. They all seem to be in support. Okay. And the other one was, what was that number?
That was the House Bill 2341.
And we're not in support of that?
I believe that bill died, and I don't think it's going to be introduced again.
Okay. And what are the benefits then for us? Is this the one, if I misunderstood, let me know, I know you will. Is this the one, though, that restricts development within? That
was 2341.
That's the one that's died?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, good.
Well, both died this year.
Okay, but this one's coming back.
The 2635 is coming back, which is the military benefits zone, and I believe 2341. I haven't heard anybody's sponsoring that yet.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, go ahead, what you got?
So we're not going to have the problem of restricting private property without compensation under 2635.
No,
right?
no. And in fact, it opens the possibilities for the county to access federal funds for economic development.
Okay.
Beautiful.
So I recommend to the board to support this bill, and I will respond back if that is the desire of the board.
All right, well, we'll see how, you gotta wait till you can introduce the bill and what have you, but yeah.
Yeah, well, once it happens, but I mean,
Sure.
concept, I think we're in favor of it.
Anything else from Al?
No, no, on this one. The next is the legislative breakfast. That's scheduled for December 11th. Attached on your agenda is the agenda for the legislative breakfast, which I need to check because in here, I think it starts at 7:30, so we need to change the title. It's not at 7, it's 7:30.
Oh, yeah.
And so the agenda on that day will be arrival, welcome, and breakfast. We'll be providing breakfast to the legislative delegation. It will be an introduction. We will ask legislators for their priorities. WASAC will be attending. Also, they will be providing the WASAC legislative priorities. And then the Thurston County will present our priorities, which is outlined in this one-pager that you have already approved. And then closing remarks, and we will adjourn at 9 in the morning. And at that time, we'll convene at about 9:30 to the normal agenda setting, reviewing the items for that afternoon.
And who's in attendance, ma'am? Who's in attendance besides the legislators?
Vicky has been
okay.
tracking that.
So,
I can't remember last year. I remember somewhat last
department
year.
directors,
Okay.
other elected county electeds, which includes the judges, and Jennifer Ziegler, Deborah Mangia,
Okay, good.
and Wasak,
Okay. I remember the quiche. I was trying to remember who else was here, though.
and Commissioner-elect Ty Mincer was added to the list as well. So far, we have 5 legislators noted as attending. Senator Braun and Senator Hunt have indicated they are unable to attend. We have not heard from Randy Becker, Richard DeBolt, Beth Dolio, Tim Sheldon, or Dan Griffey.
How about McEwen?
McEwen is attending.
I think so.
So attending is Barkus, Wilcox, Orcutt, Dolan, McEwen.
So far.
So, and then we have 4 Superior Court judges, or 4 judges, 3 Superior Court, and 1 district attending, and we've heard from 4 directors as attending, and that's Martin Casey, Kurt Harden, Jennifer Walker,
And Patrick.
no, I'm not here
Oh,
for
I'm
Patrick.
just guessing.
Who's the 4th director? Martin Casey, Kurt Harden. So we've heard from 3 directors. And then Jeff Gadman. So the electeds would be, I'll just include the judges, Dixon, Hirsch, Thunheim, Linda Meyer-Enlow, not attending, and neither is Tony Sharp. They're both at a conference. Judge Schaller and Jeff Gadman. So Jeff Gadman's the only other out of the treasurer, auditor, and assessor that I've heard from. Any other questions on attendance? So that's it. I believe,
No, ma'am.
if math is right, it's 22 people so far. Not in, I don't think I included you guys in that count.
And what's the status on the sheriff coming?
I've not heard from the sheriff. And we've sent out a save the date with notification of time and room and all of that, and asking for RSVPs. And then we also sent out the agenda, which we'll now need to correct, and the legislative priority sheet yesterday with a message saying if you'd RSVP'd, no need to do so again, but if you hadn't, to please do so. And I have to get the
Thank you.
catering order finalized today, so I'm hoping we get a few more responses. And unless you guys think differently, I was just going to go with the leases again and cater the same thing that we normally.
Happy.
Quiche?
quiche and pastries, juice, coffee. We'll do the juice, coffee, water, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then they'll just do the food and plates and silverware.
Ever put bacon in quiche?
Sure.
Oysters.
I'm not sure if there's a bacon one. I know that a very popular one is a sausage one, and I usually order a couple of those, and they went so fast last year, I thought I would place an order for 3 this year.
Very,
Oh.
very, very good.
And I think the vegetarian takes the second seat on that one. I think it was leftovers on the vegetarian.
All right. Any issues with the agenda? Anything with the program, the brochure? All righty then. Anything else? Good? Okay, sure. All right, that gets us through the legislative update. How about a PIO check-in?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. And I just have 2 little brief updates for you. This morning, I sent a news release announcing the activation of the Code Blue event, which allows for expanded shelter capacity for the shelter population. The current activation runs this evening through Friday morning, as declared by the Public Health Director. And then I also posted it to social media and the county homepage, and was also emailed to the Hazardous Weather Task Force distribution list. So update on that. And then we're going to be wrapping up the outreach for the yes.
You have a question?
Yes.
Oh, you have a question?
That's all right, I was gonna wait till you're done. So you sent that out this morning. It wasn't activated last night?
It was not activated last night. It was declared today to be active beginning this evening at 6 p.m.
But isn't that triggered by temperature?
It's triggered by a couple of different things. The task force community group met on Saturday,
Friday.
Friday, and they met again this weekend to discuss when they would recommend that it would begin and end, and they recommended that it begin today and run through Friday.
Because the winds pick up and it gets wetter. Here versus today is not so much of those items.
Well, not
It's
the
not
wind,
temperature
okay.
driven.
So it's not
all
just temperature.
No, it's other conditions involved. And, oh, by the way, to say that we're not trying to do this as many times as possible, use it sparingly as possible. So that's why I know the 20th of December is going to snow.
Oh.
And so we're use it here and on the 20th, and then look at January at the same time.
Okay, I thought it was pretty much temperature driven. And
We know
get that
it's
at
going to snow
You-
on the 20th
20
of December?
Trust your
22
butt.
degrees, 22 degrees, I figured we'd have it activated.
No,
I
it's
thought
not.
you were
It's
joking.
not just temperature driven. It's all the conditions together.
Okay.
Now I start shifting gears for preparation for the 20th. Jeez.
And the management of this at the same time.
Yeah, okay.
A couple things going on.
Coordination.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
The shelters wanted to make sure that they were prepared for it.
that's another thing. Get ready for it.
Activated as well. There was a few things to clear up before they wanted to activate it.
Thank you.
And then wrapping up the outreach for the courthouse and civic center project with the final brown bag for staff tomorrow. Overall, we've held 15 open houses for the public. And then that's through Olympia, Young, Rainier, Mino, Rochester, Lacey, West Olympia, for a total of 202 attendees. And then we've held 5 brown bag sessions so far with 133 attendees. And then I'll add to that tomorrow, and we'll submit that to TAS for the report. You guys will receive a draft report on the 6th from TAS with a briefing on December.
That's not a question, but a comment, because most people, in-house and even out of house, don't understand the amount of work that goes into these outreach, and you guys have been working your tails off out there, and I really appreciate it.
You have a question?
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Dominique, Public Information Officer for the board. Just a few quick updates. Part of our 2018 communications plan called for a style guide, a brand new usage guide, how we use the logo. I can put that style guide, that's with Megan for review. And then we'll bring that report to the appointed directors for approval sometime next month. I'm also working I'm also working with Human Resources on developing a LinkedIn account so we can do more
You
outreach.
developing a what?
LinkedIn?
A LinkedIn account. Yeah, so that's just a professional social media tool. And quick social media update. We have 4,610 followers on Facebook, 4,958 followers on Twitter, 1,032 followers on Instagram, and 106 subscribers on YouTube. Any other questions? That's all I have.
What was the goal for Facebook?
The goal for Facebook is 5,000.
And what was the number?
4,610.
And you're gonna get the 400 here in 3 weeks?
We're gonna push for it.
That's what I love to hear. All right. Okay, Duke.
Well, did they get anything more than their $200 budget to do that boost or whatever it is? Well, that's for next year, right? Next year.
We can't do it until the 14th. So,
What?
double boost.
That double boost, yeah.
You want to take up a donation here for the boost?
Go find me. All right, anything else from anybody?
You.
You got it? Is that it? Okay, thank you very much. So we're here at commissioner items, and I don't know why it's advisory boards and commissions is under there, but okay, we could go with advisory boards and commissions.
Good afternoon, good morning. La Bonita Beaumont, Thurston County Clerk of the Board. On your boards and commissions list, first up are applications that have been received. For the Planning Commission, I have received Douglas Carmen's application and Dawn DeHaan. Currently, on the reappointment list for consideration under the Planning Commission, I have received a request to be reappointed from Tim Kramer, who's been a member since July 2013, Donna Nickerson, who's been a member since January 2013, and Scott Nelson, who has been a member since 2006.
Is the one from Donna Nickerson, was that just received?
Yes,
Because I just saw an email.
The
just
email?
wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
I received an email forwarded to me from
Yesterday.
Romero
Yesterday.
yesterday.
Well, that's the one I sent you this morning as well then, just to be
Yes.
sure you got it.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
fine. It just double checks that I get certain items. Any,
When are the openings coming up?
the openings, their terms end at the end of December, December 31st.
How many?
3. And that would be the potential reappointments would be Tim Kramer, Donna Nickerson, and Scott Nelson.
How many current vacancies?
For the Planning Commission,
Mhm.
there are no current vacancies.
But there will be at the end of December, and that's the ones we're thinking about appointing?
Or appointing
No, they,
Or
the other two?
reappointing?
the members that I was speaking of would like to be reappointed.
Right.
So really, one of them is July, the other one is January, and the other one is February. So close to December, but not quite. Very close.
Oh, okay.
No.
No, okay.
What I have after their names is how long they've been on the board.
Since.
Oh,
Since
I see.
July
Since, yeah, yeah, yeah.
2013.
So it is termination of December?
All 3 of them are terminating.
Oh, I see now.
If they terminate, then we have 3 spots to fill.
Yes, but they have requested, in your packet are letters to be reappointed.
Got that. And so the Carmen and DeHaan, they're going to be on hold if we reappoint. There won't be any openings,
That
correct?
is correct.
Okay.
I would like to appoint Carmen and Dehan and as new people on the board. They've got their application.
Okay, and of the 3, which,
Yeah.
2 of them would probably not go forward. Is there any consideration, or you want to think about the 2 out of the 3 that's there? Or you can do all 3 and have an opening.
I would like to, I would prefer Scott Nelson. I do not know Tim or Donna.
And that was my only concern. I'm okay with the Carmen and DeHaan. I'm okay with that, but I don't know the other 3 that want to be reappointed.
I know one
So
of them.
which ones to not
I've worked
renew.
with Scott Nelson a lot of times. So
Yeah, Scott Nelson.
I've worked with him over the 4 years,
Okay.
so I have no issues with him.
So I defer to you folks.
I would like to appoint Don Dehan and Doug Carmen,
Okay, and
and reappoint Scott Nelson.
and then you'd have to make another statement to remove Tim Kramer and Donna Nickerson.
Well, no, they're just,
No, because
whenever
their
their
term
time.
will expire,
Yeah,
so
Well, that's what I
whenever
meant.
there's
they're-
no
yeah,
action.
not removing anybody, just
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's what I meant.
appoint
Right.
new folks.
Not reappoint, yeah.
And thank them for their service.
All righty. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree.
All right, you got 3 votes.
All right. I will prepare that AIS for the 11th.
Which is the appointments will be effective January 1st.
Yes.
Okay.
The other item that I'd like to bring to your attention is the Treatment Sales Tax Advisory Committee. As Robin Campbell was saying, there are 2 to 3 upcoming vacancies. And talking to Carrie Hannon, excuse me, 2 of the members are not wanting to continue on the board. One has not made a final decision. So that's why you have 2 to 3 upcoming vacancies, just to clarify that. She is advertising for new members, and these terms, we have a little bit of time. These terms actually don't expire until March. So it's not urgent that we do it, right, we have to wait for some new applications.
Have we advertised it yet?
We have.
Or are we doing
No.
mostly just outreach?
Carrie is reaching out to the community now and doing advertising.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
she's got a timeline of the advertisement and then getting the applications and then the review process. That's the reason she's starting now.
Okay. I know that I submitted a name or 2 last year to her, and it was suggested they may sit as an alternate, but the other ones had more desirable credentials.
Okay,
So I don't know if she still has that list or not.
I will ask her. That's all I have as far as new items on this list.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Already got the planning. How about board equalization, 1 alternate you're looking for? Noxious weed, you need 1 person there. Fair board, you need 3. And solid waste, you need, oh, just, I see, commissioner or designee.
Yes,
And then historic, you need 3, or 5.
5.
What's happened though? They've all gotten old?
And the Historic Commission.
I've got some ideas, but no applications yet.
Okey-doke.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, commissioner items. Do you have any commissioner items? One or 2, or what?
Good.
I got 1.
7 or 8.
What do you have?
I just have that briefing, public hearing decisions pending. I brought that up just so we can get a list, so it's clear in my head and for all of us, which decisions are still pending. But I think you already gave that to me this morning.
There's really no decision pending. The only actions that you may consider taking an action is on you review the agenda for the rates and
Yep.
charges.
So that answered the question for me.
And also on the marijuana regulation, which
Yep.
you will have public hearing next Tuesday.
So other than that, no, I don't have commissioner item.
I have a question about the strategic plan. Oftentimes, that is referred to by staff, that this item reflects strategic plan number 7.
Right.
8. If we're going to refer to those, should that be part of the verbiage that's in that explanation? So, under the,
In the AIS?
The plan's going to change in 2 years.
well, no, but all I'm saying is, say we're, central services approved, this is, it aligns with strategic plan number 7. Should it, I mean, I hear you say that, but it's never in here. And I'm thinking for the public, you know, that are looking this kind of stuff over, if they're interested in how it fits, you know, this particular issue that we're talking about, how come we don't mention it? And that's all I'm asking, kind of like spelling out the acronyms and things like that.
So are you suggesting to add on the description, not necessarily in the action?
Yeah, yeah, maybe in the description about
So,
this conforms to our strategic plan. I mean, I hear a lot of preference being put on that.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that.
So it's just a
and
question.
Thinking out loud, you know, we can add that strategic initiative number 11, but I think we need to describe what that initiative is to make it clear.
Oh, you do?
The title of it.
Because if we go strategic initiative number 11, you know, it really is not going to resonate with the public what that is.
Okay, well, I don't want to create more work, I was just trying to clarify something.
But on the agenda item summary, which is the backup information for every single AIS, includes...
Yeah, it refers to it.
Refers to it, and
Good.
right there is where we have the actual description.
Okay,
of
good
the
enough.
initiative.
You've covered it then.
But if you like,
No.
I can certainly, when I highlighted the initiative, I can describe what that initiative is in my presentation. I can certainly do that if you prefer.
No, I do not. I'm just,
Okay.
it was just a comment that I brought up. In either the, when are we going to make a decision on the courthouse? I'm just kind of curious.
Today. I'm just pulling.
Okay, well, no, I mean, we've got something coming up, you know, 13th or something, there's something coming. Are we gonna make a decision? I've heard it kind of just kicked around, we're trying to come up with, one of the judges said sooner rather than later and that kind of thing. Are we trying to come up to a solution on this?
So,
before the end of the year?
my recommendation will be on the 13th is when you will receive officially a briefing related to all the different alternatives, the 3 sites with all the many different options, along with the cost estimates. So at that point, at the end of the briefing, I will ask the board what is your desire, whether you'd like me to schedule a follow-up meeting where you can actually make a decision on the site, or I'll delay until next year. I'd recommend not for you to make a decision on the 13th, because at that point is when all that information is going to be presented to you, and if there is a desire by the board to take an affirmative action in selecting the site this year, then I will schedule a follow-up briefing after the 13th.
Okay.
So I will ask at the end of the 13th briefing, what is the pleasure of the board?
During that time frame, are we also going to discuss when we're going to contemplate putting the issue in front of the voters?
As you may recall, we have been working under the assumption this ballot measure will be under the special election in August 2019. That's the softest schedule that we have been working under, and that is why it's coming up. Yeah.
In reference to that, I mean, if that's the kind of the plan where we're going, my concern from the day we started on this project, that this board, I know it's been talked about by the county for a period of time, but at least this board, from the time we started on it, I made it pretty clear that I wasn't going to be pushing to burden the taxpayers until we figured out what is happening with the gopher issue. Are they going to accept our mitigation plan? If so, that's around, I don't know, 50 million that we think we can handle. And if we don't have the mitigation plan, say they kick it back and say, no, we're not accepting that. We're not going for your 10% thing, or whatever you're going to call it. I'm not gonna be in a position that I'm going to be willing to ask the voters to build a new courthouse and say we might have the Gopher thing fixed. So that's just an issue.
No, and I appreciate that. And so there's a couple of steps that we need to take, that you need to take first. From the staff level, we're going to be bringing this matter to you as an official briefing on the 13th again. Then I will ask the board what is the pleasure board would like to make a decision on the site. By making a decision on the site, you're not committing to a specific date on the ballot measure.
Right, I realize that.
Yeah, that action the board needs to take officially, I believe, in May of 2019, if that is the desire to have it on the August 2019. So there is other steps that needs to occur before this can officially be on the August 2018 special election.
Okay, I mean that, and something that goes along with that decision is the homeless issue downtown. I mean that plays into my decision, and that's not been rectified yet. I made it clear to the city that was a big concern of mine as to how that was going to play into the decision-making process. Also, I've been attending the Ruckelhaus study meetings, I guess, trying to come up with solutions to the problems that counties face, mainly because of growth management. And an example is under growth management, for those of you that weren't here when it was put in place, there was supposed to be phase 2 that never came to fruition. And that's why we're struggling today, is because the legislature never followed through, and they created the whole growth management process, but they didn't come through with any of the abilities to have adequate funding to conduct county business. And I'll just use as an example, the 15-85% split on the sales tax. That was one of the things that was going to be discussed. And that never did make it. That's coming up for some type of a solution. We can't fund the county operation the way it needs to be funded, the way it is. And so I'm concerned, what kind of a burden are we going to be putting on the taxpayers as we move forward? Another piece of that, I made it pretty clear that I was very concerned about the 100-bed addition that we're putting on the existing adult correctional facility, the wing, if you want to call it that, and possibly 2 courtrooms or some court affiliate, 1 courtroom, how that was going to fit, and that doesn't fit with our strategic plan that we seem to be coordinating everything with. The strategic plan was kind of like no more jail, that's going out the window, but more homeless activity, or you know, dealing with the homeless issue. So it's kind of like we're not following the strategic plan when it comes to that. And tied in on that is the 90 beds that are over at the juvenile center, and 80 of them are sitting there empty. And how do we sell to the public that we're building a 100-bed facility at, I don't know, 10 million, whatever, what's it going to be? I mean, just roughly, what are we talking about?
16.
15 million.
16.
How are we going to justify that? Well, we've got all these empty beds sitting over there, and I've asked that Superior Court or their juvenile administration be coming up with some kind of a plan, and I've not heard. I've heard they're talking about it, but I haven't heard a thing.
So as we move forward on the courthouse thing, all of these things kind of tie in. I can't imagine going to the voters and saying, you know, we need to build a new courthouse. I know we have bonding, or we already have money for the jail expansion, but it's going to be part and parcel of the questions that we're going to face as we move forward with our constituents. Well, what are you dummies doing with the, how come you got 80 empty beds there? They're not going to understand all the problems that go along with separation of juveniles from adults. And
But you understand it.
yes, I do.
So what is
but it's
the
a
issue?
long
Because you
ways.
cannot mix the two.
You cannot. But we need to come up with a solution. Either house women in that building over there, and maybe that would solve the problem, because I do
They
understand.
would have to be youngsters,
Well,
not
no,
adult.
no. I mean, it would do something else with the 10 juveniles. We've got about a $5 or $6 million budget going to juvenile detention exclusively, not the family court portion of it, but juvenile detention, to deal with 10 young people that are in custody. I mean, the ratio there is so far out of whack. I just don't see citizens being able to step forward. So those are concerns I've got before we move forward on this.
A couple of clarifications, if I may.
Yes, sir.
We do not have the funding for the flex unit, as you call it. We have the capacity to pay for a potential bond that might be coming down the road. And related to the 10 juveniles that you described, those are they're in custody, but they process, the courts and the system itself process many more juveniles. And that is where you have the whole court systems related to juvenile justice included in that building. So it's not just the cells they are being operating on the Family Justice Center. It's all the complex associated with processing some of the juvenile cases, which is many during the year. So the $5 million plus that you described is not just to hold the 10 juveniles, it's just to address the system as a whole.
I realize that, and I agree with everything you've said. I just wonder, using the adult facility as an example, when a wing is required to have, and with females, for an example, females need the same separation issues as males do, whether it's a gender issue, it's a illness issue, it's a co-conspirator, a more serious crime versus a lighter crime. Oftentimes, because you have 3 or 4 women in a particular cell block that would normally handle 20, you can't use that for men, and you don't have any other women. So we need to be more innovative, and I know the sheriff is working on this, but I really think before we ask the citizens to move forward with a, I don't know, a $200 million courthouse build and a $15 million jail build and a potential $150 million gopher issue, we've got a lot of financial issues coming up, and I want to have good answers to show that we're being good stewards of the taxpayers' money. We had a jail sitting there empty until Commissioner Blake got elected in 2014, and the public didn't like that. And I don't think they like the idea of 80 empty beds. Now, in reality, not very many of them know about it, but you can bet that once we start talking about taxing the community to do some of these projects that we need to do, I mean, we need to do something with this courthouse.
Okay, hold up. Any feedback from the open houses that would give him a different view on this in terms of direction of the courthouse that you've gathered yet and be able to compile?
Not necessarily. I mean, for the most part, I think people understand or believe that we need a courthouse. They were just looking at the places that
Sure, go ahead.
Want to reiterate what you said, that our decision on the location doesn't marry us to building it, doesn't marry us to a funding stream, doesn't marry us to the ballot, doesn't marry us, we're just selecting a site,
Right.
correct?
And there will be next steps, and then you will be facing, the board will be facing a new decision early next year, when and if you like to put that on the ballot.
And going back to what Gary started with, have we had any follow-up or feedback or follow-up meetings with U.S. Fish regarding our HCP?
We continue to have the conversations with US Fish, and in fact, the last meeting occurred between Josh and I can't remember who from the service. And as a result of that meeting, there is a commitment to keep moving forward and having an approved HCP as soon as possible.
And that was just a couple weeks ago,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
and also there was a commitment by the service, the Mazama Meadows, to, the mitigation side, to keep moving forward, because it just requires the final approval by the regional director, I believe. That's the last step.
That's good.
And hopefully that can be done, crossing my fingers, by the end of the year. So, yeah.
Thanks for letting me jump in.
Well, no, the only thing is, I'm not even saying one way or the other, and I can go ahead and make a jail site selection.
Jail site or courthouse?
Courthouse
Courthouse,
site,
okay,
excuse me,
thank you.
courthouse. A courthouse site selection, that's not an issue, because I know we're continuing to work this whole process towards a solution. But some of these other things that I'm bringing up, I don't want to just drop a bombshell, because I haven't talked about this recently at any of our meetings. I talked about some of these things early on as we got going, and I don't want people to forget about it, that, well, I don't care about those other issues, because I do care about those issues. We got the Transportation Benefit District. Are we going to do, not? Are we going to have that go away?
You already made a decision on that.
I know, on that, but we're also rating the road fund, if you will, which that's detrimental to the infrastructure that the county is expected to maintain. So there's a lot of things that come into play there. I would be super hesitant myself about imposing a $20 fee sometime even in the near future of whatever we're going to do with the Transportation Benefit District through the councilmatic process. I would be more inclined to ask the citizens if you want better roads, would you be willing, because we don't have resources to help us in the general fund where we always have problems, I'd put a $100 car tab on there, but let them vote on it. I mean, I'm not against letting the citizens vote on particular issues. Where I might stand on supporting that probably depends on the way it's worded, very much like the sheriff talked about yesterday on commitments to the law and justice community. Where does that law enforcement taxing district end up being dispersed to, the money raised from that district?
That's way down the road.
I know, but it's all issues that are going to be coming up at the same time, potentially, if we're headed towards August, for an election in August. All these things are going to kind of be coming about that same time. So I'm just trying to make people aware of it. Let's keep that on our radar. Let's think about it. I mean, it's just, we never get to talk about any of these issues, which is rather frustrating to me. We don't get a lot of time to debate these issues. So I'm just bringing them in at this point, just kind of to let you know that there's still issues that are out there that are going to have an effect on how we move forward in the future. Nothing to do with the site selection per se. So just you asked about, that's my commissioner's item issue I brought forward.
You just have to prioritize what revenue source you want to go with
I
first.
realize that. Yep.
That's not an easy decision, but that's what you're paid for.
It's
so.
a big issue. Yep.
I just have one question. Have we hired a homeless coordinator yet or not?
Yes.
I
She's
believe
been
so, but I need
identified,
to
but not
confirm
hired.
with the director whether that actual formal letter has been issued. So I'm not aware the formal letter has been issued yet, but
The word is circulating out in the community, we have, and I've been given the name, and I haven't read anything in the paper, but I haven't seen anything internally, and I don't know where we are with this, but
Here we go with an answer.
They're actually drafting a news release to send out tomorrow, announcing it.
they being public health.
Public health is
It's in the works.
today preparing one to announce who's on the school.
Just one other quick thing.
Okay,
Does that answer your question?
yeah.
It's coming out tomorrow.
On this difference between homeless being the priority and jail not being a priority, let's just use that as far as when those priorities were selected through our strategic plan, am I wrong in my assessment that we're moving forward kind of with homeless, but we're kind of putting $15 million up there ahead of that, ahead of everything else, even though that was the last thing on the list for the community in the strategic plan. So maybe I've got it mixed up. I just asked that.
So I would suggest that it's not that we're putting money for the jail ahead of addressing homeless issues. The board has increased funding available for homeless issues. And as you know, we have to do things in parallel.
Yeah.
So we're moving forward on both of those fronts as well as so many others. It's not putting one before the other.
And I may take the board back on the conversations on the expansion of the jail, the flex unit. Is somewhat what addressing the issue of housing individuals where how they don't supposed to be housed. And women is one of the biggest issues that we have, as well as individuals were considered to be medium to high risk, and we don't have the facilities to hold them currently. And the Disabilities Rights of Washington has come and have already sent us a couple of letters, and we have already submitted under your signature, the board, as to how we're going to be approaching and addressing their concerns before they take a legal action against the county. And one of the strategies was to address capacity and to address of the jail, and also one of the strategies and the commitments is to continue to work on that, to how to provide adequate housing to the inmates that we have. And so from my perspective, it's beyond just adding the jail. It's the obligation that we have to house individuals on the right conditions. And that's really what the expansion of the flex unit is going to do.
And I guess just kind of to top it off, this whole thing with the state closing down the mental health facilities and shifting that responsibility to the local communities, I've asked Mark to get me a dollar figure, if you can, as to what the state is currently spending on operating those two facilities, I guess Western and Eastern, and how that fits in with the state's budget on dispersing that like amount of money to those local communities that are going to have to deal with this mental health problem. And I kind of equate this to going back to the 80s when mental health was defunded, if you will, and it was kind of dumped on local governments.
And it started in the 60s, by the way.
Yeah, actually it went all the way back to the 60s, that's right, that it started there. We've never recovered from that. The whole jail issue on Sentencing Reform Act of 1984 that we've never recovered from as well, that shifted all the burden from the state to the counties, And I see all these things coming to fruition here pretty darn quick. About the same time, we might be asking for the voters to pony up for a courthouse. So I'm just putting it on the table so we don't miss discussing some of these things. That's all, that's what my concern is.
This is not the first time this kind of conversations happen on this commission and a previous commission. It comes up, it'll come up in future commissions. Which one you want first, which one you want second, and which one is going to get you the best return
And there
on
will always
it.
be issues.
And I appreciate that because I believe, you know, the job that you have is
This is the
difficult
job.
in setting up priorities.
Yep, and
Well,
sticking
and
to
very
it.
limited amount of resources to deal with those
Yeah,
priorities, sure.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, that's difficult.
Okay.
You have anything?
I'm done.
I'm done too.
I have
Just-
one commissioner
yeah,
item. Go
one-
ahead.
Yeah, I just had one item actually.
You go ahead first. You did.
Yeah, I'd like to go back. I just got a note. The appointments to the planning commission needs to be by district.
Oh.
So I will bring this conversation again on Tuesday morning on the 11th, just to make sure that the appointments that you like to do are by district. Anyway, so I just want to
Okay.
give you a heads up that this is
Well, I
coming,
know that,
it's
yeah.
coming back again on Tuesday morning. And whatever decision you make, we'll make it happen for the afternoon.
Is this about what he just said?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. The IT person's, that job has been announced. How long?
Yeah, it's, right now it's on the streets and it closes, it's planned to be closed on December 17th.
And do you know how many people have activated?
I have not gotten a report as to how many they have, so I can certainly reach out to HR and give me the number of applicants.
I just want to know the number of applicants. Is it
Okay.
3 or 3,000?
Okay.
Because just me being a weirdo in HR kind of stuff, especially recruiting, I love recruiting. I look around and there's a HR, there's an IT person being recruited for City of Olympia, one for DuPont, and so I'm just looking at the problem set as a large, like, okay, if we only have 3, that's telling us one thing. If we have 10, that's another thing. But and then I think other counties too. One other county comes to mind, but
Right.
I just
It's
kinda see where
also
we're at.
A hot job market in
Oh, yeah.
the non-government sector and.
oh yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah,
So-
of course, Microsoft and all those
Yeah.
guys up there. So.
I'll get the numbers
Yeah.
to you.
So is there a essential services one? Is that going to be launched in the HR one? Need to
Yeah,
be
those will
launched
be in January.
January.
Yeah.
We need to do them earlier, I think, especially around the middle of December, so that you get it started. Because if you do in January, you're going to have a much larger lag than. But we need to decide on how central services is going to be moving to fleet, moving to public works is another decision on that too.
Well,
so.
and this is all floating ideas. As I shared with you, nothing, at least from my point of view, nothing for me to bring to the board as a formal recommendations. And that is why, thinking the program in January will be a good time to advertise those 2 positions, gives us the time to come up with a plan and present it to the board.
Okay.
Yep. We got just a couple minutes on HR, on the whole HR process. They're taking care of putting out for the new IT person, is that right? Are they making a very conscious effort to recruiting from the military? I'm not saying more than elsewhere, but at least being sure to notify. There is a wealth of trained folks that come out of Joint Base Lewis McChord. And I think we're missing the boat, especially in this time of good economy when the job market is, the unemployment rate is pretty low. I would like to make sure that our HR people are always striving to get people that are getting out of the military at that point in time. Because I think there's a lot of expertise that we could utilize in many different fields that we have. So that's just an issue I'd like to push and emphasize that we should always not only be supporting our veterans, but using veterans to support our constituents here in Thurston County. One other thing, just for a clarification, I'm not sold on the 10% increase for the on-site septic and food services out of the health department. We had a public hearing on that issue the other day. We had some folks come and testify, I think mostly on the restaurant end of things. But I'm not sold on that 10%, and I'm wondering at what point I'm going to have an option to either vote on that particular issue by itself, or am I going to have to address it at a total budget hearing where we're adopting the budget?
So if I may, you can probably fill in the blanks.
And there will be numbers coming back to us as
So
well.
the public hearings on the budget will end this afternoon, and your final budget deliberations will begin tomorrow at 1:30 in the afternoon, and also you have another meeting on Wednesday for final budget deliberations. And this is one of the items in which the board has to make a decision.
Is it going to be made on the merits of this coming from public health, apparently? Are we going to vote, are we going to discuss and vote on that proposal? And that's part of our revenue package, I take it. Or is it going to be in the larger context of the whole budget?
So technically, the way it will work is either Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning, whenever we're on that particular topic, you will have a discussion, the board will discuss that fee increase, come to a decision, give staff direction, and then we will incorporate whatever your direction is into the budget document. On the 14th, on this particular fee, you will convene as the Board of Health to vote on this fee as a standalone item. So you will have an opportunity to vote on it as a singular issue, and then it's reflected in the overall budget that you adopt.
Okay, because I don't have any idea where my seatmates are at on this
Right.
particular issue, but just hypothetically, say we negotiated a settlement and we came up with a total of a 6% increase instead of a 10%.
Right.
Just say that happened.
Right.
At some point then would we, the first meeting when we discussed the whole thing, then we'd be giving you direction at that point, and then on the 14th we'd also vote on that as the Board of Health? Is that what you're saying?
You would give me direction no later than this Thursday,
This Thursday, okay.
and that gives staff time to draw up all the appropriate documents that reflect the direction that we receive, and then you take the vote on the 14th.
Okay, have we got other issues pending in the budget similar to this that are kind of hanging fire there? We just haven't got to finalization yet?
Yes.
We do?
Yeah, there are, well,
What, give me an example.
you can change your mind on
she
everything,
highlighted
but
yesterday.
there was a short list last
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, okay.
I got my notes here.
All the things that you have to discuss.
Yeah, okay.
So.
So
I mean,
that's it there, and
Yeah.
that's where this is gonna fit in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I need to know.
So just to reiterate what Robin suggested, the items that are not included in the
Not
budget.
included, I remember that.
The septic fee, and as you suggested, if there is any conversation among the board, they may want to set other than the 10%. Hopefully that will be discussed tomorrow afternoon and Thursday morning. So whatever then the consensus or the direction of the board, then it will be materialized on the actual ordinance that you will be officially voting on the 14th.
And because that's a revenue issue, we are then going to have to take a look at the $10 million business. We're trying to be above 10 million, right? Aren't we trying to keep above 10 million?
So that revenue does not come into the general fund.
Okay, oh,
That's
okay.
a restricted fund.
Okay.
But part of what you will have to look at, I don't know if you'll recall the conversation.
Some FTE positions that go along with it?
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
But when Shelley presented her budget, part of what you saw that day is the financial plan for environmental health. We will have that for you tomorrow. And you will, when you see it, I'm sure you'll remember that the fund is already less than it should be.
Yes.
So if you reduce revenue to that, then the part of the conversation we'll have to have tomorrow is what of the spending items also need to be taken out of the budget. Shelley is prepared to have that conversation with you.
Okay, and then one other piece of that, I heard something in the last couple days that sales tax revenue is going to be up.
Sales tax revenue is
Up.
just crazy.
I know, but it's
Yeah,
up
but
like
it's
$2 million
not up more
up.
than, what?
Is it $2 million up?
No.
No,
What
no,
you
no.
What did I hear
heard-
about
What
that?
you heard
Yeah.
is
Did
that
you hear that too?
accounting, that's
Yeah.
just that
Okay.
accounting adjustment.
So
That's not
remember
real
when,
money.
a couple of months ago, I brought this issue to you, is how you book the revenue related to the sales tax that is going to change. And we have to be booking that revenue on the calendar year it occurred. For instance, in the past, we have booked the revenue for the last 2 months of the year on the next year.
When it comes.
When it comes, the actuals. Now, the state auditor has stated book this year. So what is going to happen is we need to book that revenue. Since we already booked in the past, it's going to appear that we have $2 additional million on the ending fund balance, which we don't.
It's gonna be
I
closer
was
to 3
mistaken
million.
then from
No.
that.
Yeah,
No,
so
that
not-
is
it's not
is
new
an
money.
accounting is
Okay.
an accounting steps that we need to take.
This is the letter that you sent out that said, don't get excited.
Don't get
and
excited."
thinking of new money."
Okay.
And yet we did.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Well, it's easy to,
Yeah, it's
because
easy.
it's an accounting method.
And we just touched on it, so
That's
I
right.
thought, gosh, are we gonna be able, and I was thinking we
That's a
might be
very
able
good
to
question
supplement
to ask.
No.
some out of that. Okay, good enough.
So on the items they also may be considering, starting tomorrow afternoon and Thursday morning, is the cost of living adjustments for staff, the sheriff law enforcement arbitration decision, the interlocal fund, drug fund adjustment for federal requirements, the sheriff funding for reclassification of one of the positions, and also you will be considering taking action in accepting additional revenue from grants, the Sheriff's Office, the Office of National Drug Court Policy, the Community Plan Economic Development from the Department of Ecology, and the Prosecuting Attorney, Office of Violence Against Women, Department of Justice, additional revenues. You will also may consider taking an action and actually have an indirect cost be charged through the treatment sales tax. And lastly, you will consider the argument the clerk made to you to start charging some of the eligible costs in her office to the treatment sales tax.
So at this point, after the public hearing where Sheriff Strauss spoke, I would also add to that list his request that you consider the cost of equipment for the 2 new deputies. So there's a little list to work through. We've got that ready to go, and any information you might need, we'll be prepared to do our best to answer. But it's a short list of things that you need to decide that have been kind of hanging out, that we put them in the preliminary budget, and now we're up to okay, we're at the deadline now, give me direction so we can get it into the paperwork. And asking of all three of you is that you give me final direction by Thursday so that all of the documents will be ready to go. Now, that's not saying that one of you may decide to vote no on something that comes in front of you on the 14th, and we'll have to deal with that if you should choose to go a different way. But that's your prerogative, so.
So I think
we can figure it out.
the word that Robin used is underlines ideally.
Yes.
We'll have your final decisions by Thursday.
Yeah, because we need a little time to prepare
Sure.
all the documents.
Well,
And one of the things we'll give you tomorrow is the complete list of all of the resolutions. It's 2 pages of resolutions that you'll vote on the 14th.
Okay, but there's only a few things that are going to be somewhat controversial, I think, right?
Yes,
I think. Okay.
yes, I think so.
And then, when we get to that point, will we address those as standalone issues? Those couple things that
All
are
of the items on the
will
list.
be kind of
will- yeah,
standalone?
You gotta go
by
through 'em one at a
line
time.
item budget or something like that, so.
It's not, if you ask me about a specific item in the budget where one of you wants to vote no, or 2 of you want to vote no, or maybe all 3 of you do, but if there is something specific in the budget, I need to know so that I can pull that out. Any fee increase is already a standalone item, but if there's something in the budget that you want to be able to vote on that's kind of buried in there and you don't see it on the list I give you tomorrow, just tell me and I will make sure that you have that opportunity.
Okay, I mean, I'm not aware of anything right now, but I am.
Right, are you ready?
Okay.
Anything else?
Yep. Thank you.
Alrighty, we're done for today for the Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session.
And we're back here at 1:28, right?